Good morning and welcome to the Knit Shift. My name is Laura and this is my co-host Gracie, asleep on the job as always. Good morning. Hi again. Hope you didn't mind the different intro this morning. Gracie is still asleep beside me, and I feel the need to state for the record, I'm wearing shorts. I never wear jeans when I record because why wear jeans when you could wear comfy pants? I don't know if it was clear that I was wearing shorts, but I was, I assure you. Anyway, welcome to the Knit Shift, episode 24. Today is Thursday, September 10th, 2015. It's a gray early morning here in Norfolk, Virginia. Show notes can be found on theknitshift.com. I am on Ravelry as Yarn Stormer, and we have a Ravelry group for the podcast, so come check it out. I'm on Instagram as Laura Mahalski, so just send me a follow request. You'll know it's me because Knit Shift is in the bio. I'm drinking English breakfast tea. I want it to be fall so desperately, as so many of us do. Yesterday it was in the 90s with a heat index of about 100, 102. So humid, so miserable. I'm over it. I'm rebelling by wearing a sweater in my lovely air-conditioned apartment and drinking tea and my lovely Keep Calm and Carry Yarn mug from one of my dear friends. Our air conditioning went out a few days ago, and thank God it wasn't yesterday when it was so hot and humid. But my landlord just got us a whole new AC unit and HVAC system all of 4 months ago. So the fact that it went out this week was not good. But they've come, they fixed it, hopefully at no cost to her. But I digress. This is a knitting podcast, not an air conditioning podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I am so pleased when I hear from people that they've watched or they enjoyed the episode, so thanks very much for your feedback as always. I hope you watched the previous episode, episode 23. I drew the names of people who won prizes in the knit along, so congrats to all of them. They've all been in touch, and I believe all three have received their packages. I think I heard from all three folks. I know I heard from two of them that they received their packages, so again, congrats, and thank you for playing along if you did. I will have I'm contemplating another knit along in the near future, and I'll talk about that later in the show. I have 4 projects, works in progress to show you. No finished knits. I have half of a finished knit, so you can guess what that is. So let's get to it, shall we? The project I showed you last week was my sockhead hat. Last week's episode was a bit abbreviated because of the drawing, but this week's episode promises to have a lot more stuff. So I showed you my sockhead hat, which I had started a little over a week ago, and you can see from the Progress Keeper just how far I have come since then. This is a free pattern by Kelly McClure. It basically calls for a really nice skein of fingering weight yarn, and you knit quite a bit of 2x2 ribbing, then you switch to stockinette, and you knit it extra tall so that it's nice and slouchy. This is a very popular pattern on Ravelry. I'm knitting this out of sport weight yarn, actually. This is Nomadic Yarns Twisty Sport, which is an 80-20 merino nylon blend, 328 yards, and the colorway is called When You Play the Game of Thrones. I can show you the ball right here. Ashley of Nomadic Yarns takes the time to wind up the balls of yarn by hand, and it makes it extra fun to knit with, I think, though I'm sure it takes quite a bit of time on her part. This is a 10 color repeat. It goes from yellow to gray to bright aqua, aquamarine, teal, to red, to black, orange, Kelly green, burgundy, bright blue, black. So maybe that's one of those is brown. I think I said black twice, but it's really fun, and as you can see, I am in the stockinette portion of the hat now. Since this is sport weight, I adjusted the numbers and just kind of hoped for the best. The ribbing is nice and stretchy. I cast on 100 stitches, and I knit ribbing basically until I was sick of it, which was about 3 inches. And then I increased 12 stitches around because I wanted to ensure the hat is slouchy. Now that I have short hair, I want to make sure I have some nice hats for winter, but I also want to avoid hat hair if I can, so I am hoping to make this nice and slouchy so that it doesn't totally squish my hair. So we'll see how it turns out. And to increase the 12 around, 100, if I were increasing 10 around, it'd be pretty easy because 100 is divisible by 10, but 100 is not divisible by 12. So I will provide a link in the show notes, but there's a really nice stitch calculator on the web that calculates how to do increases for you. And it provides the increases in 2 methods. What you do is you put in the current number of stitches, you put in how many you want to increase, and then it shoots out a formula of if you would like the increases to be mirrored as if it were a shawl and you'd want to make sure the increases happen, in exactly the same place as you approach the center. Or alternatively, it provides a formula for you to basically just you can knit in the front and the back and knit 8, knit in the front and the back and knit 8, knit in the front and back and knit 8, and so on over and over, and then at the very end, knit 6. So it's not an even Steven division. It just basically spaces them out. The increases are spaced evenly, but what's on the ends is not. I hope that makes sense. But I will provide a link to that in the show notes because that's a very handy website. I don't know who created it, but thank you to them. And my Progress Keeper is a little skein of yarn. This is from the Homespun House shop. I caught one of Molly's updates a few weeks back, and I bought 3 Progress Keepers. And I wasn't really sold on Progress Keepers a while back, to be honest. I thought, whatever. But it really is nice to know exactly how much progress you've made. So I stand corrected. Oh, are you trying to get down, Gracie? Oh, sorry. Come on, this way. There you go. Sorry. Adjust this a little bit. Okay, I have 3 more projects to show you. First, a sip of tea. Do you want to come back up here now, Gracie? She's so fickle. Okay, next up is a shawl. This is called Sailing by Meg Gadsby. I've not made a ton of progress on this. I have made very little progress on sailing since we last spoke, and that was 2 weeks ago, so I've barely touched this. You can see from the Progress Keeper, I have knit about 3 rows on this. This is an asymmetrical shawl. It consists of alternating bands of garter and stockinette stitch. And it calls for either a skein of fingering weight yarn or 500 yards of DK weight yarn. Which is kind of interesting, I guess, because I guess it skips a weight in the middle there with sport weight. So that's not that odd anyway. Never mind. Yeah, and I have my nice little cupcake Progress Keeper, also from my Homespun House purchase a couple weeks back. I'm using Malabrigo Machita, which is a single ply fingering weight yarn in about, I think it comes in 420 yards. I don't think this is superwash since it's a single ply, but I might be wrong. And the colorway is Diana, which is all of these lovely pinks and greens and oranges and purples, and I just really love this yarn. I'll hold it up really close so you can get a good look at it. So, slowly plugging away at that. There's no deadline with this knit. I'm not looking to have it finished by a certain day. If I do have it finished by a trip I have coming at the end of October, fantastic. But if not, it's definitely not the end of the world. And I'm carrying this in my dumpling bag, which is a purchase from my favorite yarn store on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, Knitting Addiction, and I'm actually going to be in the Outer Banks on Saturday, and I'm really hoping to pick up another one of these. I think they're made by a person local to that shop. Oh, and I'm knitting Sailing on a US 7 size 4.5 millimeter needle, and they are my Knit Picks interchangeables. Next up, I have the aforementioned half finished knit. and that is my Zauberball sock. I was right here above the heel last time we spoke, and this is probably my favorite of the Progress Keepers I bought. This is a little bottle of perfume, old-fashioned one with the squeezy handle. I really like it. I didn't expect to finish this sock so quickly, to be honest. These are my purse knitting, and I watched some movies in the past couple weeks at home. I'm getting a good bit of knitting done on my weekends these days, not as much I'm getting knitting done on my weekends, not the weekdays. So I must have just really picked this up, and before I realized it, I had finished a sock. So this was my standard toe-up recipe. I cast on, I believe, 32 stitches, 16 per needle with Judy's Magic Cast On. I increased every round for about 5 rounds until I got to 48 stitches total, or 24 and 24. Then I increased every 3rd round, and that gave me a really nice rounded toe. This was a trick I learned from Amanda from Not a Podcast, and I really like the nice rounded toe. I increased every 3rd round until I hit 68 total, and I just knit up the foot. I did a fish lips kiss heel. I think everyone stutters when they say that heel name because it's just a mouthful. And then when I got back to 68, when I finished the fish lips kiss heel, I was back to 68 stitches, and I just carried on up the leg, and then I knit 2x2 ribbing about 25 rounds, and I finished with Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. And I knit these on size 1.5, 2.5 millimeter needles. They're my Chaigus, my trusty Chaigus, which I love very much. And I have already cast on sock number 2. I don't want to say never, but I really dislike finishing one sock and then starting a new pair. I really have to finish my pairs back to back. I don't like to let projects linger too much. And I say that, but the next project I show you is something that's been lingering for ages. So again, never say never. I don't like for my socks to linger. I'll leave it at that. So here's what's left in the Zauberball. I believe it comes with 420 yards, and I really love the way it looks. It looks so much like hand spun, the way the colors transition one into the other. So I highly recommend this for a pair of socks. I find it to be a thin sock yarn, so you might need to go down a needle size or 2 from where you would normally knit them, but I'm really pleased with how this is knitting up. I think this sock is going to wear like iron, basically. So really pleased with these. And I'm carrying this project around in my Nomadic Yarns little polar bear bag from Ashley's Etsy shop. I bought this at the same time as I bought this sport weight yarn. So it's a nice little size. I love these cube boxes, but I will say it is a tough sell to get a sock. I can fit the second sock in here, but it gets pretty tight. Let me put it in and I'll show you. So if you're knitting really thick socks, this is probably not the bag for you, but it can carry around 2 socks and a skein of yarn. Not too poorly. It's just snug. And that brings me to my final work in progress this week, which is my biggest. Pull it up here. This is my Mama Vertebrae sweater, which I can't remember if I said, but I'm wearing a Mama Vertebrae sweater right now. This was my second sweater I ever knit, and I knit this out of Tosh DK in the colorways Baltic, and I cannot remember what this lime green is called. It's a really nice little sweater for just kind of throwing on, but I'm realizing that I didn't like just how, it doesn't cover any of your chest, which is the way the pattern is designed, and I realized that. So with this gray Mama Vertebrae I'm working on, I'm really trying to give it a really nice, wide button band. Although, is it called a button band if there's no buttons? Collar, whatever you want to call it, front of the sweater. So I wore this sweater today out of protest because I'm so over summer, and I'm really excited to finish this gray sweater. I have a deadline for this, which I'll talk about in a minute. So here is my sweater, and you can see from this orange stitch marker where I was the last time we spoke. So I finished the body, and I knit seed stitch for the border. And I wasted no time. I picked up the first sleeve, and I am already on the cuff. I'm sorry, I just bonked Gracie with the needles. So I'm on the cuff. I started the cuff a little early, probably around here, but I do like a nice long cuff, and that way if I end up blocking the sleeves a little long, I can roll the cuffs. So you can see also that I have all of these stitch markers in here to illustrate my decreases, because there's no way I'm going to remember on the second sock exactly how to do it. And I know I could have taken notes, but I just go by feel as I try it on. So yeah, I'm really pleased with how quickly I moved on this sleeve. It's taken about 2 weeks to knit the sleeve, I think. Yeah, probably about 2 weeks. But I'm really loving this yarn. This is Stonehenge Fiber Mill Shepherd's Worsted in a lovely gray sweatshirt colorway. I'm afraid I don't know the name. Am I finishing my third ball or my fourth ball? I think I'm finishing my third ball right now. I just started my fourth ball of yarn. That's what it is. So each skein, let me pull it up here. I don't think I have the size. I think it's 250 yards per skein. So I have used 750 yards so far, and I'm now on my fourth skein. But I bought 6 skeins of it, so I'm really hoping to make a nice ample button band. And I did do some extra increases on the front just to try and give it a little more heft. I don't think it made much difference, but I'm really counting on a nice thick button band, also seed stitch to really kind of give it a little more anchor here. Yeah, I'm really pleased with this. I think this is going to be such a wearable sweater. I love my bright colors and I love this sweater, but I just think gray will be really versatile. So this is something that could live on my desk at work. You know how office air conditioning is. So yeah, I'm really pleased with this. I'm using size 8 needles, and on the edging, I believe this is a size 6. Yeah, I went down 2 sizes. And I don't remember. I know a 6 is a 4.5 millimeter. Is that right? No, 7 is a 4.5. US 6 is a 4 millimeter. I don't recall what a size 8 is. I presume 5.5 millimeter, but don't quote me on that. So yeah, flying along. This is just a really classic raglan, and it's a $4 pattern by Kelly McClure. I don't think I said that yet. And it comes in many, like 8 or 9 sizes, and it writes the pattern for fingering weight, sport weight, fingering, DK, light worsted, and heavy worsted. So any range of weights you could want. I mean, I knit this in the DK size range, and I'm knitting this in the light worsted. So yeah, so this is coming along very nicely. I'm hoping to finish this in time for a trip I'm taking the last weekend in October. I am going to the Asheville, North Carolina area with 2 of my local knitting friends, and we're meeting a friend of ours who lives in Nashville, Tennessee. So we're renting a cabin for the weekend and just basically having a girls' trip, and it's all pegged to SAF, the Southeastern Animal Fiber Fair in Fletcher, North Carolina. So none of us has been. We're all really excited for it. And if you'll be there, let me know. Kemper from the Junk Yarn podcast is going to arrange some sort of meetup or get together for her podcast. So I'm hoping to attend that and meet her because her podcast is really fun. And if you're going to be there, please give me a shout because I'd love to meet up with you at the fair. Yeah, so that's my deadline. This is my not Rhinebeck sweater, I guess you could say, since I'm not going to Rhinebeck. I've never been to Rhinebeck. Gosh, do I want to go. Hopefully next year will be the year. And that's it for my works in progress. That felt like a lot. I guess it is a lot. So hopefully next time you see me, I will be on the second sleeve of that sweater, and I will have made some progress on that sock. I I did have a lot of time to knit on the sweater this week because I'm a driver. I've mentioned this many episodes ago. I volunteer as a driver for the American Cancer Society, and I drive people to doctor's appointments or chemo or radiation. It's called Road to Recovery, this program. And I drive people and then I wait in the waiting room with them and I drive them home. So I drove a gentleman last week and we arrived for an appointment and he waited like a good 90 minutes before they took him back. And it was like a 10-minute appointment. So I had a lot of time to knit last week. I'm driving him again tomorrow. So I think we're going to not be sitting in the waiting room this long. I'll pick him up later so that we don't have as much time to wait, which means I'll have less time to knit, but such is life. That's fine. I'm there to help him not have knitting time. So, but it was a really nice treat to have all that knitting time and knock out a good portion of the sleeve. I think I knit 4 or 5 inches that morning. So that brings me to a segment called Future Knits. I am contemplating joining a mystery knit along that begins today. I've never done a mystery knit along. I purchased Isolde Teague's second mystery shawl, the one that was held, I want to say, in this winter. Why are you not opening? This is a brand new to me water bottle, and when I flipped the lid right before I started podcasting, I spilled water everywhere all over myself. So that's why I'm like just barely gingerly opening this. Side note, my boyfriend's in school full time for accounting, and he goes on a lot of networking things because he's applying for internships right now, and accounting places love their swag. So this is a Tervis tumbler courtesy of one of the places he's visited. My work water bottle is courtesy of one of the places he's visited. So a lot of swag around our apartment these days. So anyway, we were talking about knit-alongs. I did Isolde Teague's, and I didn't do it. I bought the pattern and I never knit a single clue because the setup for the first clue, hers was a choose your own a choose your own adventure shawl. She gave 2 options for each clue, and each clue, no matter what you chose, it would work out, math-wise. So her setups for the first clue were really tricky, really, really tricky and kind of confusing. So I just never did it. And then as I watched the progress roll in, I didn't care for the knitted objects. So I just never did it. But the designer of this Summer Tide knit-along, Helen Stewart, she has designed many shawls that I find aesthetically pleasing. She designed the Pebble Beach shawl. She designed, I have the other name of it here, Candlelit shawl. Just really pretty, what I would call feminine designs. So I am contemplating joining that knit-along. I believe it is about $6 to join, to buy the pattern, £3.80 if you're in England, which I think she is. 2 skeins of sock yarn, one of about 300 yards, the other about 400 yards, and it could be 2 different colors, or just 800-ish yards of a single color. Either one is fine, but it seems like most people are choosing 2 colors. And she says on the post that it is meant to be for an adventurous beginner or an intermediate knitter. So I think she lists the skills you need to know: knit, purl, yarn over, slip knit. I don't even know that there's like a pass the slip knit, pass the slip stitch over, which is, I guess, a little more advanced of a shawl stitch. So I'm thinking about doing it. But as always, the question is what yarn to use. And I'm really trying to shop from my stash right now because I'm going to SAF, as I mentioned, at the end of October, and I will be going to the Fall Fiber Festival in Orange, Virginia, the first weekend of October. I went last year. It's a fantastic little festival. It's held on the grounds of Montpelier, James Madison's estate in kind of in Shenandoah, rolling hills country of Virginia. So I really recommend it if you can go. So I might do a little shopping there, but I'm not buying any yarn before then. So here are the colors I am looking at. Now, Helen described on the project page, she called this a romantic boho feminine shawl. And with that in mind, I picked up these two colors out of my stash. And she did say one requires about 300 yards of yarn. And so for me, that would be this Plucky Primo, which is a 75-25 merino cashmere nylon in the colorway Cake Plate, because it is 385 yards. And it's just super soft. Oh man. And then this colorway, this is French Market Fibers in a colorway whose name ties to Louisiana, but I can't remember it. But it's a really lovely kind of a gray purple. And I really think it's pretty. But for boho feminine, I just think these soft colors together would look really nice. So that's where I'm leaning right now. That being said, I'm also contemplating the Plucky Primo with this skein of Malabrigo sock yarn, and I believe this colorway is Solis. I had used one skein of this for 2 baby vests I knit for cousins, a cousin that's expecting twin boys, and I had one skein left. But I just think these two would be really pretty together too. This pale pink and this bright green. Alternatively, because of course there's more options, I was looking at the French Market Fibers with this skein of Jill Draper Makes Stuff in Luna Moth, because I'm really not sure what I'm going to use this Luna Moth for, to be honest. It's not a color that's totally in my wheelhouse, and I just think these two colors kind of look cool together. And I do have 2 skeins of yarn if I wanted to stick to a single color. I have a massive mega cake of Hazel Knits sock yarn in, actually no, I think that's 600 yards or 800 yards. It might not be enough. If it's 600 yards, it's not enough, but it's a mega cake of Hazel Knit sock yarn in, I bought at a trunk show. So it's really big. I think it's 800 yards, so that possibly could work. But it's in a color that's very similar to this. It's kind of a gray purple. Alternatively, I have 2 skeins of Jill Draper Makes Stuff in a deep green colorway called Deepest Cypress, which I have 1,000 yards of, so that would be more than enough. So I'm going to keep looking at these colors, and but I really am leaning toward the pink and the purple. I have no shawls that color. It would be really girly and feminine and pretty, so that's where I'm leaning, but let me know what you think. I have no yarns to show you, as I previously mentioned. And that brings us to odds and ends, where I like to talk about a little bit about my life, about food that I've been cooking, all that good stuff. And I have a book to mention to you guys, too. I don't know that I've talked about books before. I just finished this book last week called Rotten Ruin, and it's a young adult novel by Jonathan Mayberry. I got it out from my local library, and basically it's a post-apocalyptic young adult fiction book. I like zombie TV shows, I like zombie movies, I love The Walking Dead, and someone had recommended this series to me. There are at least 3, possibly 4 books in this series. So this is about a young man named Benny Imura, who has only really known a world with zombies in it. He lives in a place called, why can't I think of the name of it? He does not live in the Rotten Ruin. The Rotten Ruin is what lies outside his town. I finished this book about 3 or 4 weeks ago, so all the details aren't fresh, but it basically looks at, he has a brother, his parents are dead. His brother is a zombie killer, bounty hunter type person who goes out and takes care of zombies at people's requests. if you know that your husband was bitten by a zombie and he's still in your house, Benny's brother would go out and basically say a few words and kill the zombie, as if he were like a priest or a funeral director type person. But this is a very fast-moving novel. I really couldn't put it down. That being said, it took me a while to read it because I read so much at my job that I find it hard to focus and read hours at a time at home. So I read maybe 15, 20 pages a night if I was lucky. But there's about 500 pages. But I really enjoyed it, and I'm planning on borrowing the next book in the series from my library. But this came out 5 years ago, so this is probably not new news to anyone who reads young adult, sci-fi, post-apocalyptic books. But I enjoyed it, so there you have it. But the past few weeks have been really good. I got to FaceTime with some friends. My buddy Kate of the Stitch Addiction podcast, we had a knitting date a couple Mondays ago, which was really fun and a nice way to catch up. I just FaceTimed with my friend Casey on, was it Monday night or Sunday night? I can't remember if it was Labor Day. I think it was Labor Day. And Casey is one of the people I'll be going to Asheville with in the last weekend of October. So we talked about that, and we talked about her sweater knitting plans. She is thinking about, I think, a Hero, the Colorwork Yokes pullover. It's gorgeous. If you haven't seen it, you should look it up on Ravelry. So I'm hoping she's going to try and pull off a sweater. I don't know if she's going to pull it off before we go. That's a lot of commitment, and I'm not going to say that she committed to it because I don't remember, but I think she'll bring it along with her either way, whether it's finished or not. So go Casey. And it's been really nice. I mean, I am off Sundays and Mondays now, so my days off, I had the same days off Friday, Saturday for 4 or 5 years, and it's been an adjustment. I can't really remember what day it is on my weekends, but each of the past 3 weeks I've gone to the bay, to the beach, and just kind of swum in the Chesapeake Bay and just kind of floated. When we went, my boyfriend and I went on Labor Day, it was low tide, and all of the crabbers and fisher were out trying to catch fish. There are some jetties spaced along the beach that we go to, and what was chest deep a week earlier, because it was high tide, was like knee deep, thigh deep this time. So I wasn't comfortable with going, 100 feet out from the beach just to float some. So I did not swim as much this week as I did a few weeks ago, but it's been really relaxing. I go to a beach. It's a public beach, and there's just no one there. My old roommate and I discovered it and call it our secret beach because we never see more than 5 or 6 people there. So we bring the beach umbrella, lather on the sunscreen because I'm pale as heck, and just have a really nice couple hours at the beach. So I don't know that we're going to do it this weekend, but I will definitely keep doing it as fall continues because I'm not a big summer. I'm not a fan of the crazy heat. I much prefer temperatures in the 60s and 70s, or even colder, frankly, but I'll take 60s and 70s over the hot, humid 90-degree weather we've had all summer. In fact, since my days off are Sunday, Monday, I did not have a 3-day weekend for the holiday, as most people do. So I am off work this coming Saturday, the day after tomorrow, and I will be, Josh and I, my boyfriend and I, are going down to the Outer Banks for the day, and we're going to go eat at our favorite restaurant, and I'm going to convince him to go to the yarn store, which he doesn't know yet, and I think we're going to drive all the way down to Hatteras and maybe climb the Hatteras Lighthouse, which we have done once before. It closes for the season on Columbus Day weekend, which is about a month away. So it's a really nice drive. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Outer Banks, but the northern Outer Banks are kind of developed, but then once you get south of Nag's Head, it really is just a road through sand dunes, and there's just not much there, but it's really remote and beautiful and a really nice ride. So I highly recommend it if you get the chance to visit the Outer Banks. And that brings me to foodstuffs of the week. I have had a couple cooking successes I wanted to share with you, and recipes I will certainly link to these on the show notes on thenitshift.com. I have a subscription to Cooking Light magazine, and on Labor Day I made spiced pork tenderloin with new potatoes and green onions. And basically you make a spice rub for the pork and let it sit. You pat it on the pork and you let it sit, and you cook up some bacon, take it out of the pan, and then you cook the potatoes and green onions in the bit of bacon drippings that are left, which makes it extra tasty. And then you take the potatoes out of the pan. This is all a one-pot pan, which I am all for. And it calls for a cast iron skillet, so I used my Lodge big old, like 3-quart cast iron Dutch oven. Then you sear the pork a few minutes per side. Then you plop the potatoes and onions back in, and you toss it in the oven it calls for 15 minutes. I found that I needed a bit more time because I had a bigger pork tenderloin than the recipe called for, but if you use a meat thermometer, you can track the progress, and once it reaches the appropriate temperature, you can take it out. And that's what I did. So that was really delicious. And I also made a really good crock-pot recipe last week, and it's called butter chickpeas with tofu. And butter is a bit of a misnomer because there's no butter in the dish. It's super simple. It's coconut milk and tomato paste or crushed tomatoes. And you cook it in a saucepan, and you add several spices, ground ginger, curry powder, and garam masala, and you kind of reduce the sauce. And then you put the tofu and the chickpeas in a crock pot, and you pour the sauce over it and cook it for about 4 hours. And that's it. And it's delicious and fast and easy, and I highly recommend it. You could eat it with rice. I made spaghetti squash, and I had some frozen Trader Joe's naan bread, and that's what we had it with, and it was very, very good. So I will link to both of those recipes in the show notes. And I think I might leave do I have anything else to talk about? I had a few patterns I wanted to mention. I think I will mention one of them this week because this episode is approaching the max length I like to keep stuff. So let me reach down and get the iPad, and I'll share with you a shawl I found this week that I really liked. Okay. This iPad is about 6 years old, so it's very slow moving. So this pattern is called Chateau Rouge, and it's by Madame Tricotte, who I believe is a knitter who lives in Paris. And this involves 3 colors of sock yarn. It reminds me quite a bit of Color Affection, but then it kind of goes off in a different direction. Apologies for the lamp glare. So there's the big view of it. And it involves some striping, but then it also involves this really neat sort of checkered pattern. I'm not sure how this came to be. Flip it around. Oh, why aren't you flipping? I don't know why this won't rotate. Sorry. iPad ineptitude over here on my part. There it is. Well, I'm not getting it to rotate, but for whatever reason. But here is another view of it. It's a really cool... Let me see if I can get that closer there so you can see the cool yellow, pink, and gray pattern there toward the edge of the shawl. This is a paid-for pattern. She calls for 3 colors of Madeleine Tosh Merino Light. And it's definitely a project a beginner or advanced beginner could do. The pattern costs 4.5 euros, aka about $5. And I just think this is really pretty. Let me pull up a modeled shot. And there you have it. So I just think that's really pretty. And I think that is it for the week. I will save the other 2 patterns for next week. I've really been in a shawl gazing binge. I want all of the shawls, I just haven't knit them. But I did just knock out a massive shawl in a month, my forest canopy shawl last month, so I suppose I can't complain. But anyway, I believe that is it for this week's episode. I hope you have a fantastic week with lots of crafting time and whatever makes you happy. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.